Season 2 Episode 2 is here, and it picked straight back up from where the cliffhanger left us at the ending of the season premiere, with the galaxy opening up a little more and allowing us to learn more about the incoming crisis that is set to cause devastation for the galaxy due to Terminus and Trantor going to war. It was an episode that had some great revelations, along with some mother and daughter bonding. So let's jump into this episode and take away all of the important details from it. So let's get into it. Here is Foundation Season 2 Episode 2, Ending Explains. Oh, and if you enjoyed the video then feel free to hit subscribe. Thanks. I'll break this video down by the main arcs that we had and the planets that we spent our time on. Gale, Hari Seldon and Salvor. This was an arm of the episode that was definitely one of the most interesting ones, and it connected to what we saw occurring on Terminus right at the end. We saw that after Seldon revealed himself to Gale and Salvor after managing to break out of the Prime Radiant, he told her of the suffering that he endured and how his consciousness was aware the entire time, and that he was essentially plunged into darkness whilst she was in cryosleep for decades, confirming what we saw during the opening of the season where he was in darkness and looked as though he was going insane. This copy of Hari Seldon was aware of the impending second crisis that was going to occur, which is based on the war between Trantor and Terminus, and he made an extremely interesting point on how there were originally supposed to be two versions of the Foundation. He went on to discuss psychohistory and how it essentially predicts the natural pattern of humanity. However, if too much information is put into the system then it gets disturbed, hence why another Foundation was needed as a counterpoint. It needed to be created to be used as a place where psychohistorians would have had access to Hari Seldon's plan, and with an understanding of what was to come, they could alter the course of the Foundation, or the Empire, depending on how off track things were looking like they could go. This is because one of the worst cases is that the Foundation on Terminus could eventually turn into another empire. It's been unchecked, so there's nothing to say that the natural hierarchy system that humankind naturally gravitates towards wouldn't start taking effect. And based on what we saw in this episode, it's clear to see that it has to a certain degree, with the way that individuals were acting back on Terminus, with the fact that the vault was opening. Polyvanisov, despite being one of Hari Seldon's most loyal and longest supporters, he was pushed to the side and undermined due to the power play and egos that were taking over. It certainly feels as though a new empire could well be on the way. With Gale being aware of the second crisis that's going to be taking place, we saw her utilize the abilities that she held in being able to see into the future. She shut off the oxygen so she was in a state where she was vulnerable and on the verge of being unconscious. This is because it's a state where she was used to doing these visions, and she tried to tap into her mind several years into the future. This was where she saw a terrifying thing. She saw devastation, destruction, and death, and it looked as though the planet had fallen, but most specifically fallen to one individual. This person was called the Mule, and he personified evil and smelt of darkness. Gale looked as though she was the last survivor, and she had no warriors or mentalics left. Mentalics are individuals who have the ability to read the minds of people, and also warp the minds of the people that they're targeting. This is something that Gale was unaware of at the time, but they are extremely powerful, and will most likely prove to be an ally in the future. Upon Gale waking up, we saw that she was fearful over what she saw, and that the vision pretty much summed up the threat that was present for the Seldon plan and the future of it. The Mule was hungry to find the second Foundation, something which, judging by that moment, it felt as though Hari, Gale and Salvor were going to be successful in creating. It was due to the vision that Gale had where she saw that it was set to be on the planet Ignis, which is where we ultimately saw the three of them heading towards by the end of the episode. The Mule uttered a name which was called Hober Mallow, and this was something that was also projected on the vault right at the end of the episode, where we saw his name was ingrained on the front of it, after the warden essentially imploded whilst in the position of Jesus Christ on a crucifix. Hober Mallow is a character that nobody on the Beggar knew about, and neither did anybody that was on Terminus. While Hober Mallow is an individual that's going to have a large impact in the direction of Season 2 of the show, he's an interplanetary trader and has been requested by Hari Seldon to assist in the aiding in the protection of the Foundation on Terminus against the impending crisis. With the Mule saying, "Are you from the Age of Empires?" before Hober Mallow, it shows that there's definitely going to be some importance that comes from the character. With the Mule being able to look inside of Gale's mind and see that there was a younger version of herself looking out over her, maybe he could be some kind of mentalic too. With Gal seeing Salvo lying on the ground and looking like she'd been killed in battle, I wonder if she's going to be able to alter the chain of events that end up leading to that final result. With them being able to break away from Seldon's original timeline and the events in the past, I don't think we'll see Salvo being killed in reality. It was interesting to see how there was some resistance around the Outer Reach to Seldon and the Foundation. It was always said how it wasn't supposed to be like a religion, but it's very much morphed into a belief system that people live their lives by. However, it does seem as though the recruitment into the Foundation is something that within the Outer Reach people are becoming more understanding towards. Trantor. Like last week, the story that we saw taking place on Trantor was extremely interesting. It wasn't as focused on as episode 1, as we spent more time on the connection between the beggar in Terminus and the fate of the Foundation. However, we saw Brother Day and Queen Sarith working on their potential acquaintance and eloping. We saw Brother Day looking at the wall which had Empress Hando ingrained onto it, an empress that had a dynasty that covered 4 times the area that the Cleonic dynasty currently held, and it saw a development of science and other advances. You could really sense the mindset shift that Brother Day has had in the past 2 episodes, and the fact that he wants to have a more traditional ruling and lineage. There was a moment where we saw that Dermazal was looking up at it once Brother Day left, and it did make me wonder what was going on inside of her head. With her being designed to be loyal to the Cleonic reign and to eliminate any threats, I do wonder if, when the time comes for everything to be destroyed, she'll end up turning against Brother Day due to her programmed loyalty. We found out in this episode that the attempt on his life by the Blind Angels was something that wasn't arranged by his brothers, as their memories were scanned, so it does still leave the question out there on who it was that was behind the attack in the first episode, with Queen Sarith mentioning how if Brother Day ended up being assassinated when the other versions of himself were destroyed, and bringing the fear that could be present within him to the forefront. He showed that he didn't seem to be fearful of the idea of no longer existing, a fear that he's never had to experience before. But I do wonder if it's going to be something that he does change his mind about. Personally, I think he probably will. The weakness of the Empire was something that was also mentioned by Queen Sarith, which highlighted that its presence is most definitely known around the galaxy, with Sarith also mentioning how Brother Dawn would never go on to be Brother Day, and how that was his sole purpose of existing. It's like she's trying to get inside of the head of the brothers. So I do wonder if she has sinister ideas over what it is that's going to be occurring in the future. Could she have ideas of wanting to be the Emperor of Trantor without Day by her side? Maybe, but I guess that's something we'll just have to wait and see. Overall review. I thought this episode was pretty good. It's got me interested to see where the rest of the season is going to go, with the likes of the Mule, Hober Mallow, Ignis, the Second Foundation, along with Queen Sarith and Brother Day becoming a singular mortal being. Oh, and also the war that's set to take place. This entire season is shaping up to be something that's going to be relatively complex, but exciting to follow. Just when I think one side of the galaxy has more troubles than the other, it flips it on its head and shows that there's no corner that's safe from the Empire's touch, and the impending danger that will be hitting everybody. With the Empire wanting to extinguish the Foundation, I'm really interested to see how successful that plan will be, and if a mere mortal version of Brother Day will be able to survive. All I say is bring on the next episode. What did you think of episode 2? Leave a comment down below, and don't forget to subscribe.